Welcome, parents, to Toddler Toolkit podcast. Today, we have Ruth Vercoe, and she is going to kick off our month all about play. Yes, the month of May is all about play, and we are so excited to have Ruth here. Ruth is a teacher turned mom on a mission to demystify child's play through understanding play schemas. If you've ever found yourself asking, why is my child doing that? Whether it's throwing soft toys, hiding stones around the house, or lining up crayons, you're certainly not alone. It wasn't until Ruth was in the thick of parenting that she realized she had entered her journey with an unfair advantage. And this unique edge was a deep understanding of the play schemas, how they show up in young children, and how to work with them rather than against them. Now she's passionate about helping other parents gain that same insight. And she's also a wife and a mom to two amazing boys. And she can share a little bit more about that with us. She also has a lot of experience, 15 years of experience working with children, and so much teaching and education experiments, everything from teaching junior age students, a bachelor's in education, a post-grad diploma in special ed. She also has a certificate in digital and online learning and a master's in education, not to mention a deep love of the outdoors, which I also love too. So I adore that about you, Ruth. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here.
All right, let's kick it off about your unique journey as an educator and a mom. So can you tell us a little bit about your background, how that shaped your early parenting experience? And I'm also curious too, were you a teacher first turned mom, or did that happen at the same time? Share your story with us. How did it all come about?
Awesome. Yes, definitely a teacher first. I have been a teacher and I still am. I teach a couple of days a week. So it was just over 10 years before I became a mum. And I'd also had lots of voluntary experience through kids camps and other ways working with kids before that. So I came into teaching and came into my mothering career probably right from being a child, those ones that always are looking after kids and then do the training and then just keep looking after kids. It's one of those funny things where rather than saying I go to work, I say I go to school, and people are like, have you ever left? And so coming into being a parent, I always thought as a teacher when parents would ask me parenting advice, being like, I'm the teacher in the classroom. I'm not the one trying to get them to go to bed, trying to eat their broccoli, trying to tidy up their toys. I've got this whole cohort of kids, and so they just kind of work together. So I don't know how to do that parenting side. But then when I flipped and became a parent, I was like, I actually know a bit more than I thought I did. And one of the big things was play, is that I was knowledgeable about play. I knew the benefit of play. I knew that it wasn't just something random. And so I was able to lean into it. And when I found my friends and other people I was talking to getting frustrated with things, I realized that wasn't frustrating to me. That was something I understood. I knew about their learning. I knew about their play styles. And so I was able just to roll with it. And so that's where this all came about, because I realized there's so much to learn. And as you already mentioned, all my learning that I've done, I really enjoy learning, but I also really enjoy sharing. I don't believe in holding things because knowledge is key, especially with parenting. So being able to share, being able to show how to love your kids, being able to play with your kids through the teaching career and then through my own kids, it's just been a really awesome journey.
Oh, that's amazing. And so when was the moment that you realized that play isn't really random? There's something deeper going on that our children are engaging in and doing.
Yeah, when I was early on in my teaching career, I found out about play schemas. So they're these repeated patterns of play. And I'd seen them in my class and we've done play-based learning, but seeing them in a primary school setting is very different to seeing them at home in the ins and outs of your everyday. And so I knew about it and I'd done lots of work on it, and I'd worked on it in an education setting where you're really intentionally weaving learning into it. But then suddenly I had my own kids, and as they started growing up, my oldest is 4 and my youngest is 1.5, oldest just turned 4, suddenly I could see, all these things I was trying to teach these kids through the day, my kids are actually just learning naturally because I'm playing with them, I'm allowing them space to play on their own, I'm allowing them physical space to play in. If I just let them play, they're going to learn. And I can just put in some language and put out some intentional ideas and things for them to play with. And it just flows naturally. And so that's when I realized that as much as the teacher I am, I actually can step back if I've got that knowledge in the back of my head and just let them go with it and just do little tweaks and little guidance if they need something. But otherwise, they know how to learn. They know how to work this world around them, and they do it through play. And so just by allowing them to have that space, especially through May, with play being May play, yeah, allowing them that space to be able to just go and go and go and play and explore and learn, which is so much fun when you see it, especially in your own kids, because you can just see these brains ticking around and them learning and them growing and this world expanding as they learn more about it.
Ah, that's amazing, Ruth. And I love how you're facilitating and guiding something your children are already naturally doing, but you're just adding a little bit of enrichment there. And so, would you say that that's maybe the unfair advantage that you have coming into parenting? Or is there any other kind of advantage you think you had from being a teacher and then raising your boys?
Well, a second unfair advantage that I only realized last weekend when we had our son's fourth birthday was that I'm used to 30 kids in a room. And so the parents, like, we had about 10 friends and some younger siblings. So it was probably about 15 under 4 year olds. And some of the parents were like, whoa, whoa, there's a lot of kids here. And I was like, every kid's come with a parent. We've got like 1 to 1. This is a great ratio. So that's another unfair advantage, is that gaggles of kids don't concern or like give me fear. But definitely the unfair advantage was just knowing about play, was being able to understand play. So it's not just me sitting there being like, I'm really bored. They're doing this again. Like, this is really boring. What are they doing? This is not fun. I could actually see that this repeated pattern that they were using. I could see the play that they were doing. I could see how to stick with them in it to help them just what they're doing. But I could also see how to extend them and make it something that can move them further and further and further. And what I realized really quickly when talking to my friends and going through different mums groups, particularly through one mums group, is that play schemas were kind of introduced and then glossed over, and lots of people being like, wow, that's really interesting. But then it was kind of left. And people I talked to about afterwards, they were like, oh, yeah, there was something about play schemas, but it just, whatever. But when I realized, when I talked to them more and when I heard behaviors and patterns their kids were doing, if I could explain what schema it was and then how to either change it to something that was a bit more productive and a bit less destructive, or how to play with them, they're like, oh, why did I not know this sooner? And so that was a really unfair advantage I had, is I knew how to unlock play in a different way. I knew how to understand play in a different way. And I really understood the benefit and just the how to play with your kids. And so I wasn't just sitting there bored and thinking, oh my goodness, I've got to go play imaginary play again. This is fun. I could actually lean into it and find the joy rather than the frustration.
I love how you mentioned the practicality of like how, you're understanding what your child is doing. You said like in the play group, but like they're doing it, but then how it shows up in other ways and how parents can get a deeper understanding that it's
Mhm.
connected. It's not just some kind of like fancy term for a certain type of play you can enrich your kids with, but it's actually, we're seeing this in the everyday. We're seeing it in some of the joyful moments and maybe some of the stressful moments as parents. And that if we just only gained a little bit more insight, that maybe we could help our children and help ourselves not get so stressed out.
Right.
Yes. And for those brand new to this idea, what exactly is a play schema and why should parents care about it besides what we already just stated?
Well, one thing that I really love about play schemas is it's not some multi-level marketing, some new fandangled idea. It's been researched, and there's years and years worth of research and experiments and teachers using it. And so play schemas in the simplest form is repeated patterns of play. So it's things that you can notice your child doing again and again and again. And it's their blueprint of how they understand the world. So it's when they're dropping things, when they're throwing things, when they're moving things around or themselves in circles. There's all these different schemas that they're working through. And these schemas start small and they build on each other. And so these building blocks create the foundation of how they're understanding the world. And so they're all really important. You think about any learning that you've done, you don't jump straight to university level where you're sitting in a lecture theatre and getting all this big information. You start small and you build and you build and you build. So when we understand these play schemas and when we allow our children to work through them rather than saying, don't do that, we're building the blocks for their future. We're building the blocks for their learning, how they're understanding the world through play. As I said, previously thinking you really had to sit down and teach them different concepts. Just let them play through the concepts and they learn so much better and you have so much more fun. And as I've said before, a lot less frustrating, which is what I'm all about, because there's enough frustrations in life than to have frustrations with your own children.
Yes, for sure. And the play schemas seem like they're going to be so helpful for our listeners to learn more about. And you mentioned kind of briefly just maybe a few of what some kids are maybe doing, like if they were throwing or something like that. But can you walk us through some of the most common play schemas and what they look like in everyday life?
Yes, I definitely can. So for me, what I run with is the 10 most common play schemas. Sometimes you'll see 7, 8, 9. Sometimes you'll see up to lists of 32. And so there's lots of different ways to look at it, but 10 is just a lovely, nice, tidy number. But it does cover the majority of the play schemas, and a lot of other schemas can fit into them. So what I'll do is I'll run through the 10 that I use, and then I might just go into 3 main ones that you see, just so you've got a bit of an idea of what you're looking for. And for me, if you do want to have a look at these play schemas, because it is a lot to take into, on my website, which is playschemas.com, you can go /free and you can download this and lots of other resources all for free, because I'd love for people just to know and understand and have more joy in your family. So the 10 ones, really quickly, are trajectory, orientation, enclosure, rotation, transportation, positioning, connection, disconnection, transformation, and enveloping. So I've run through quite a list. Don't worry, you don't need to remember them all. But as you start learning about them, they do stick in your mind and you do start going, oh my goodness, that child's just doing that. I can see it again and again and again. So, for example, trajectory. This is one I quite often start with because this is one of the biggest frustration points for parents. So, trajectory is all about throwing, dropping, moving really fast. And so, this is where you see kids dropping things off their high chair or maybe throwing the remote at the television. And so this is one where parents really want to stop their kids doing the throwing. And this is where the frustration comes. As I've just said, that play schemas are those blueprints. They're the building blocks for life. So if your child is really wanting to throw things and you're telling them stop, 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 and trying to redirect them to a different activity, either you're squishing that trajectory schema and so they're not getting that building block, or they're just going to keep doing it in ways that are more and more destructive. So if you understand, oh, they're working through the trajectory schema, instead of them throwing their remote at the television, you can provide them some soft balls so they've got something safe to throw inside, or take them outside and throw some balls. You might throw some sticks, you might do some picking of balls, you might try and run really fast. So you're using what they're doing and what they naturally want to work through, but in a more productive and a less destructive way. On the note of distraction, so one of them is disconnection. So it's when everything comes apart. And so I was just talking to a friend recently about this because she was getting really frustrated that every time she went to the washing basket, no matter where her 2-year-old was, they seemed to know that she was at the washing basket and they would come and they'd chuck everything out. Whether it was the clean washing they just put in, or whether it was the washing they're trying to take out of the washing machine, they just throw them on the floor. She's like, I just can't do this. Like, I can't do any work while she's home because everything gets thrown. I was like, let's just think about this in a different way. If this is the disconnection schema, she's wanting to take things apart. She's learning about how to do this. So we worked through some strategies, and one of them is actually letting her, because their washing machine's down low, take it out of the washing machine herself so that she's doing that disconnection. Or if it's taking it out of the clean, how about you take it into her bedroom with her and say, hey, let's put them in the drawers together. So you're teaching her some good habits, but you're also working through that disconnection, taking things apart. And then the last one I'll quickly go through because it goes hand in hand with disconnection is connection. Some people lump the disconnection and the connection together. For me, being a parent of 2 boys, I cannot put them together because if you've ever seen one child build a tower and then another child break it down, you know the tears and frustrations and tantrums that come with it. Very different schemas they're working through. The connection is when they're putting things together. So it might be train tracks, it might be linking things together, might be building towers, but connection also comes with bodies. So it could be that when you're wanting to do some reading, they're always snuggling up right next to you, or they want to hold your hand, or they want to be carried. So they're working through that connection schema. So with every schema, while there's 10, there's so many layers and so many ways to look at them. And then some of them overlap. So connection could be positioning as well. So they could be connecting up all these blocks, but they're connecting them in a particular order, which is right for them. So as you're looking through the schemas, as you learn about them, you can see that play isn't just random. You can see that while the kids are doing it on their own, there's no direction needed. They're working through the world. They're working through how things work, and they're making this blueprint. And there's things like fine motor skills and scientific concepts and just critical thinking, all these skills that you want to have your children to have in life. They're doing it naturally. So if you allow them to play and if you understand their play, they can really work through it, which is amazing.
Yeah, that totally is. And thank you for introducing those 3 schemas to us. And I guess I'm going back a little bit about the repeated behavior. And that's just something like I noticed, like, my twin boys had, and I know maybe sometimes parents might not really think about, they know what's happening a lot, but they might not think about it in the same way. It's like it's a
Mm.
repeated action. They're trying to play out a certain type of play, a play schema. And
Yeah.
then I have, I guess, a question for you too that I just thought of while you were talking about redirection. So let's say a child is, I get, they're throwing, and what schema was that again?
Trajectory.
Trajectory. So
Yeah.
if they're doing a trajectory schema, let's say they're throwing something that's not safe. My boys did a lot of that when they turned 2.5. So they would just find anything they could throw and throw it. It sounded like you were mentioning that they still need to carry out the play schema for their development. So would the redirection be, let's go throw some softballs in the basketball hoop or to each other? Or would that be like the redirection right there? Or is it okay to redirect them or pause them on that and then do it later? So I guess what I'm asking is, does the timing matter? So they're throwing, and we say, okay, I'm going to take these away because this isn't safe, but let's go out and do this. Or does it need to be like they need to do it then, or could it be later on? Like, how does that play work?
I would say both and, which is a little
Okay.
bit of an annoying app, but it all
Yes.
depends on the timing and your children. So ideally, it would be in the moment. As we know, kids live for the moment. If they've done anything, you need to talk about them in the moment, because if you're talking to them 3 days later, it doesn't really work. And if they're wanting to throw something and they're just tantruming more and more and more, that's because they're still wanting to throw things. And so the easiest way to bring them out of the tantrum is by saying, let's go do throwing, because that's also saying, I hear you. I understand you.
Mm.
I can see that you're really wanting to throw something right now. And this remote actually isn't safe to throw because it's hard and it could hurt someone, or it's special and it could break. But we do have this ball or this teddy or the soft thing that you can throw, or, stick or something. So you're saying, I see you, I hear you, I know you're really frustrated right now. I would be too, but this isn't something we can throw, or this isn't the space we throw in. Let's find a space that's safe, or let's find an object that's safe. And even it's something little that you can do right then. So it could be even sitting down on the ground and rolling something to each other, which is a lot less physical and big. But if you've got a small space, it's something you could do. It could be that you've got soft toys and you stand on a chair and you drop them into a bucket or a cooking pot or something that you've got. And so you're doing that trajectory, but with something that's not going to break, that is soft, and it is a way that's more contained and a way that's safer. For me, I discovered the big, like, fluffy balls that you can have. And so I've got one or two of them in my handbag. And so then I've got them with me, because you can use fluffy balls or soft balls for so many different schemas. And they're a great thing to take out with you because they're not going to break anything. They're nice and light. And so you can do things on the run. But then once you do know about the schema, if you know that they're working through the trajectory schema, you could intentionally think, okay, today they're really wanting to throw. What are we going to do tomorrow that can really fill that need to throw? So it could be intentionally going to a park or a space where you've got lots of room. It could be that you can set up an activity at home that involves throwing things down or rolling things to each other. So there's lots of ways where, in the moment, if you're trying to redirect them to something else, they'll be like, I don't want to just build a tower. Like, that's not what I'm doing. I want to throw the blocks with the tower. So if you're trying to do that and they're still throwing, you're not actually winning and you're just getting everyone frustrated. But if you're redirecting to something that they want to do, so keeping on that theme of throwing, it's a lot more fun, a lot more joyful, a lot less frustration for everyone. So that's where the both and comes in. If you do have the time and space, try and do it right there and then, because you're really reacting positively to your child, but then thinking about how you can progress it later on.
I love that, and I love the tip about the softballs in the bag for when you're out on the go, because a lot of times these things can pop up and you might not have the same abilities that you would at home. So I love that
Mhm.
tip. So many parents are misunderstanding about the behaviors, like they're misunderstanding like the throwing, the climbing, the repetitive lining of toys. Why are parents misunderstanding that? Where's that coming from, and how do you see it differently?
I think simply we don't know what we don't know. That was, as I was saying, my unfair advantages. I came into parenting already knowing this. And so I could see it and look for it in my children. And so I was on that track already. But if you've never heard of play schemas, which I feel like 90% of parents are, especially if they're not an educator themselves, you've got no clue what's happening. And so you don't know what you're looking for. And our lives are already full as it is. It's not something else that, if you're not aware of it, that you're thinking, maybe I need to look into my child's play because maybe there's something behind this. Your life is full enough. But once you know it, you see it. I definitely liken it to if you've gone out and bought a new car, that before you buy your new car, you might see every now and then one around on the road, and you buy your car and you see them everywhere. And it's the same. Once you know about schemas and you've got a bit of an understanding, you're like, I can see it in my child, and I can see it in that child, and I can see it in this. And then sometimes you see it in adults as well. So like positioning is quite a strong one that adults keep because you want to have things in a certain way in your drawer or in the cupboard. And so you notice it again and again and again. And I think the big thing about not knowing is when you get frustrated, you're not in a place to learn and think. And so you want to know it before you're in that frustration mode so you can stay calm and be like, okay, this is probably a schema. Let's grab my cheat sheet. Let's look through what they could be. Aha, that's what it is. And the more you do it, the more you stop and observe and think when you're allowing yourself not to get frustrated, the more you can be open to it. And then the more it becomes second nature. So I no longer have to pull out my cheat sheet and go, oh, which one could it be? They're doing this and this and this. Now I just instinctively know, and I can see where some schemas cross over as well. So it's really interesting once you know. But the main reason for frustration for our kids and for us is just not knowing. And that's fine because parenting is so full and there's so much to know that we can't know everything. So that's why me and you, with our podcast, with our resources, we're here to help because we want to make life a little bit easier and a lot more fun with our families.
Amazing, Ruth. You had shared 3 of the schemas with us, but I know that you said you have a top 10. Is
Yeah.
that available where the listeners right now, if they're feeling like an urge to find out more, they just like don't want to wait till the end of the podcast and they want to go look now, where can they find that?
Yes, definitely. So if you go to my website, which is placeschemas.com/free, there's all the free resources there. So there's lots of different ones that are on themes, so specifically for nature play, or there's one around Easter that's come out, and there's lots of ones like that. And there's one that's just a general cheat sheet, which has all the top 10. So it's Place Schemas. Schema is spelled schemas.com/free. So I've got all the individual ones you can download, but there's also at the top of the website a line that says, I want them all. And so you can just get the whole folder because I believe that there's enough to do in parenting rather than having to pick and choose. Just download the whole folder and you've got all the freebies at your fingertips. And every new freebie I'll add into there as well.
That's amazing. After this, I'm going to go download them because I'm
Yes.
so intrigued. There's so much to learn. And even as a previous teacher, educator, special educator, I'm still learning things from Ruth here. So I know that everybody's going to find this really helpful, no matter what your background is. Let's talk about some real life parenting moments. So you mentioned your son went through a throwing everything phase, which my boys did too. When they started doing that, how did you navigate that situation differently? Because I think like a lot of parents, and even some, advice that we can see online is, it's like, okay, like I understand you want to throw, but throwing isn't safe. I'm not going to let you throw that. And maybe the throwing is at a sibling, or a lot of times it can be like a toddler and baby dynamic where there's a little bit of wanting attention or trying to interact. Maybe what seems to be inappropriately with a younger sibling or baby. So, but I'm just curious for all of those listening. Like you said, your son was throwing, and how did this knowledge help you really navigate that? Like, walk us through that moment. Like, what were the thoughts going through your head?
I think number one is always being able to reframe my mindset. So it's that being able to stop and check yourself so that you're not getting frustrated. You're not going to, stop that and yelling at them and getting really heightened yourself and then heightening them. It's having that knowledge, which is the power, and going, okay, they're throwing. Throwing is very strong play schema. It's one that you see with, I'd say probably most kids go through all schemas, but throwing's a really easy one to see. And so knowing that it's the trajectory schema, knowing that it's something they want to work through and they need to work through, you can step back, you can have that time to just reframe your mindset and be like, right, this is part of their learning journey. How are we going to work together rather than work against each other? So for the first time you see trajectory schema, quite often it's in their high chair. It's when they're just starting to have some solids, maybe they've been having a bit more ownership on it, and they start dropping things on the ground and they look at you and they laugh. And at first you look at them and you think, oh, that's really cute. And you have a giggle back, and then they do it again. And then the next meal they do it again. Then you go to the grandparents that have got carpet on the floor and they do it again. And you're thinking, this needs to stop. But instead of thinking about it as the trajectory schema, you're just thinking about stopping them because this is not okay and this is not how we do food, and adults don't put food on the floor. But this is them discovering their world. They're discovering if they let go of something, it falls. We all need to know this, and this is what they're doing. So for us, what we did to start with was we didn't want that behavior. And I'm not telling you to let your children drop things on the floor, but it's acknowledging what they're doing, saying, oh, you just had your spoon and you let go and it hit the floor. That made a ding noise. Wow. And so you're acknowledging what they're doing. And then you're saying, when we're eating, our spoon stays on the table. And so that's during the eating time. But what you'd want to do is do some things before your eating time or before you know they're going to be in a throwing phase. So it could be you're sitting on a different chair because you don't want to associate it with their high chair as much. You can do throwing from their high chair, but make sure there's no food there so that they're not associating food with the throwing. But you might sit on an adult's chair or sit on your lap at the table and have some objects in front of them and have a go at dropping them. You could put things like pots and pans on the ground, so sometimes they might make a ding when they fall. Or it could be where you go outside and you can hold them up and you can drop things, not dropping your children, dropping different objects. And so you're letting them explore in safe and productive ways. And that's the same if they're in a throwing phase. So one thing is a lot of parents probably see is it's quite often the disconnection schema and the trajectory schema together, where you might have a basket or box of toys and all of a sudden, bang, 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 they're just trying to find a toy and they're throwing everything out. And while they're trying to find that toy, they're also working through these schemas. When they throw things, they make noises, they get moved out. When they disconnect, the box gets smaller and it's easier to find what they're looking for. So you can talk around how to do things a better way. So you could say, hey, let me find it with you. And so you're looking together. And it could be you know their favorite toy, so you put them more in a displayed place. Or it could be, hey, let's have a go at putting them all back into a different box. So you could be throwing them into the box, you could be rolling them into the box, you could be running around, which covers in so many different schemas if you look into all those different ones. And so I think, the main thing is I keep repeating is it's knowing the schema and then working with your child rather than against them. And you know your child as well. So you know what toys and objects you've got in your house, what space you've got outside your own house, what parks you've got near, what locations you can go to make it work for your family. So we've got a big backyard, which is absolutely fantastic. So it's really easy just to open up the doors and go outside, either letting the kids go on their own because we can see them in our backyard or going out with them to play. So it's all about that redirecting and knowing your own children, knowing your own space and what you can allow them to do. For example, my now 4-year-old, when he was 1.5, he would never want to go outside on his own. My 1.5-year-old now, as soon as we finish the breakfast, he's hitting the door to go outside. And yesterday he put his arms in the air and was like, yay, when we let him outside. So all the children are different. And so some kids really like working through these on their own, and other kids really do like the adult support. And as they grow and as they mature and as they change, they go through different ways of how much they want you with them and how much they don't, how much they want a sibling and how much they don't, and how much they just like that individual time. So it's all a progression. It's all part of this amazing learning journey that our kids go through and that we go through with them.
As you were talking, Ruth, it made me just think of something about how a lot of times when parents are busy or mom is busy and maybe she's cooking or she needs to clean something up, sometimes these play schemas might pop up then because it's almost kind of like there is that space for that independent play. And you mentioned some kids engage in it more independently, and they go off and maybe they're doing the thing where they're throwing the things everywhere, or they're getting into something, or they're trying to do certain things that might seem unsafe, and mom is feeling like, well, I can't cook the meal, I can't do this. I hear often these things kind of pop up when parents are trying. It's the time their attention is off their kid, they're trying to do the thing, but then their kid's doing the thing over there, and how that kind of can pull them in and out from what the task at hand they were trying to do.
And that's where play is so important, understanding your
Yeah.
kids' play. And I've actually just done a series on my podcast about love languages, which ties in too, because play and loving your children just go hand in hand. You can't really take it apart. When you understand the 5 love languages of children and you understand the 10 play schemas, you can really see how you're both filling your child's love tank and filling your child's play tank. And so, for example, when you're trying to do those tasks, it could be you're setting your child up with another task they can do it independently, or you're just having them join you. So I was just on a voice message with a friend yesterday, actually, my lovely friend Hannah, who we talk a lot. And she was saying she was getting really annoyed because she was trying to unload the knives and forks from the dishwasher, and her little boy was just throwing them on the floor. And so she thought about the podcast she'd listened to and thought, oh, maybe I could involve them. And so he would hand her a knife, a blunt one, not a sharp one, and then she'd put it in the drawer, then a fork. And so she said it took, 3 times as long, but there was no frustration. They were working together and putting these amazing life skills of working together as a family, doing the disconnection, working together. And so that's when you reframe your frustration into something that becomes joy. You're understanding what your child's trying to do. They're not just trying to annoy you. Kids on the whole aren't just trying to annoy you. They're trying to work through something. They're wanting your attention because they love you and they need that love back. They're trying to find out how this world works. So when you're leaning into it rather than trying to push away from it, you've got such a better relationship and more joy in your home, a lot less frustration, which is what we are all about.
Yeah, and I just got this, image in my head when you're talking about that of, a little toddler child, trying to help with the dishes, the dishwasher, and how, as parents, sometimes we can be like, we just want to get to the next thing. No, I need to get the dishes done
Mm,
because now I need to do dinner. I need to do this. So, and then we kind of shut it down, the connection down between us and the child instead of engaging them, which you said it can take longer. But those are those kind of like beautiful moments. If we're able to slow down, that we can
mm,
engage them, and it's meaningful connection. And then it's also, like you said, it's helping them, um, it's helping them with life skills,
yeah.
social skills develop and learn through play, and also learn to cooperate, which kids really need to learn how to do when in social settings and social groups. So these, even just unloading the dishwasher could be a huge skill for kids to have, or helping with you mentioned putting the laundry in when a child was throwing the laundry all over the floor. So all these great kind of connection pieces, if we could reframe it, Ruth is really telling us some amazing things that we just need to kind of just like, okay, we can slow this thing down. That's okay.
Yeah. And I've actually got a whole freebie which is remembered around helping at home and play schemas. So again, if you go to the website, you can download the freebie that has got some suggestions around helping at home and play schemas. And I love chatting. So if you want, you can flick me a message. And I love problem solving because I've got this knowledge and I work through it. And I really believe that this knowledge is key. So I love talking to people. So let me know if you've got questions more because I would love to help you through things.
That is amazing. So was there any behaviors, I'm sure the throwing, besides throwing or in addition to throwing as a mom, that used to frustrate you that now you embrace or even enjoy thanks to understanding the play schemas?
One thing I definitely don't enjoy, but understand a whole lot more is ripping flaps out of books. That you've got these beautiful books, you've got the flaps or something hidden, and you've got these kids that just rip them off. And my boys haven't actually gone through that phase really. And so we've got quite a few flappy books because we do a lot of reading. We love reading. And I think I've just introduced them and we do I know schemas, so we do disconnection in different ways. But ripping flaps off books is a disconnection schema. It's when they're pulling them and then just pulling them more and they don't really realize that they're ruining a book. And so because we've got lots of flappy books, I've realized there's particular kids that have come round and I have just left them on their own to read the books because that's how we do it at our house. Then the flaps are all on the floor and I'm like, oh my goodness, you've just ruined all our really good books. And yes, that's not an okay behavior. Yes, they need to be taught that that's not okay. But when you understand it's a disconnection schema, you can see the reason behind it and you're like, okay, they're not just doing this because they want to break their book. They're not just doing it because they're naughty little children. They're doing it because they're discovering the world. They don't realize if they pull that little bit harder, it comes off sometimes, or they don't realize that pulling it off, it doesn't actually go back on. It's not one of those things that are meant to be disconnected. So it's a good learning task where you can actually talk through with your children, especially if they're a little bit older, or just know actually these books aren't appropriate to have out right now with these children or with my children at this age. Let's have other ones. So definitely a frustration is ripping books, but once you understand it can be part of the disconnection schema, it's just like, okay, they're working through life. It is part of their learning. Let's see how we can change this for the better.
Was there anything that you felt you totally missed one of your boys or your kids were doing, or what they were trying to tell you through play? And if you did totally miss it at first and then you realized it later, what did you learn from that?
I think probably one of the big things, as I was just saying, I just went through a series on my podcast through love languages and play, is I always knew about love languages and I always knew about play schemas, but I hadn't really in depth put them together and realized how much they connected. And so one of the big things, particularly you've got this full day, whether you work, whether you're at home with the kids, everyone's got that dinner time. No matter how much you prep, there's always time where you're going to be stuck in the kitchen where your children just want you and they're going, mummy, 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 and they're trying to climb up your leg or trying to, as my boys like to do, slide down my legs like fireman's poles. And they're just wanting you. And that's really frustrating when you're saying, I know you're hungry. We're all hungry. I'm trying to get XYZ done. If you just left me alone, it would be done so much faster. When you're looking at these schemas, either you can preempt that and you can set up something or get them engaged in something, or they can be working with you. And one thing I've really realized recently is a lot of that mummy, 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 as one of my boys is going through the connection schema at the moment. So you can see him connecting lots of things, loves putting train tracks together, loves building things up, loves making lines of toys, which is both positioning and connection. But then that tags with the love languages of physical touch and quality time. So he's wanting that physical connection of actually being on me and touching me because he's wanting that side of connection, and then physical touch and the quality time as well. So once I realized that, I was able to reframe my thinking and realize, okay, how am I going to fill up his need for the play as well as his emotional love tank to go hand in hand? And when I've done that, so it could be, I know I need to start dinner in 5 minutes' time or do something. I'll sit down with him. We'll play next to each other. We might have our legs touching as we're playing together, or I might let him play on my back or things like that. So we're having that physical connection, that touching time. We're working together, and then I go and do the task I do. And another really important thing I found, which just goes with kind of play in general, but overarching, is timers. Is that quite often I'll do, okay, I just need 5 minutes to do this. And I'll use my phone and I'll put a 5 minute timer on so that I'm accountable. And my child, now at 4, we've been using them probably since he was about 1.5, has this concept that when the timer goes, he will get what I've said. Because otherwise, it's like, oh, in 2 minutes, we'll do this. And then they come back to you, and it's probably been 5 minutes, but you're still doing what you're doing. And you're, oh, no, in 2 minutes. And so time means nothing. So by having timers, they're like, right, I just need to do this for 5 minutes. When this timer goes, come and get me, and we'll go and do something again for 3 more minutes or something like that. So you're allowing them to know that you are busy and you've got these tasks to do, because we're not going to revolve our whole lives around our kids. We do need to do things like cook, and especially if there's sometimes when they're not safe to be in the kitchen. But you're allowing them to be in your life, and you're allowing them to have a bit of ownership of knowing that, hey, mum's doing this right now and I'm going to play with you again. So you're filling them up before you need to do those other tasks, and knowing that you will be back. This task isn't going to last forever.
Yes, that is such a good learning experience for kids, and they're learning the pieces slowly, understanding times. Younger children might not understand the concept. I love the idea of the concrete timers, and then filling their attention buckets early, especially, if they're like, I totally know what you're talking about. Like my two boys, like clinging on to me, wanting me to sit next to them, or pulling on my legs when I'm trying to get their snack. So it's like they're hungry, but they also want that physical connection at the same time. So thank you for sharing that.
We also eat a lot of crackers at home, so it's easy just to, before dinner, here's a cracker.
Crackers.
It doesn't fill them up too much, gives them something crunchy to eat on, and then we can continue doing what we're doing. So there's other strategies that don't always involve play. Food is great.
Yes. Speaking of play, connection, and regulation, how do the play schemas help us connect more deeply with our children? I know you just did mention the love languages as well.
I think it just gives us a really unique vantage point into their world, that when we can see things from their viewpoint rather than our viewpoint, it gives us all those aha moments. Because as I said, knowledge is key. And when we can see where they're developing at, we can really lean into it. As adults, we have been conditioned to these lives where we just have to go and go and go, and it's the next and next and next. And we need to fit so much into our days. And that's not our kids, and we don't need to push them into being that way. So when we can actually relax into understanding that play is so beneficial, play is part of our children learning and developing in this world, we can lean into it. We can slow down because we're understanding it's not something that's wasting time. It's actually building up our kids. So once we understand it, then we can connect with them more. We can have that less frustration, and we can go along in a bit of a slower pace, whether it's slowly undoing the dishwasher or just actually stopping the task we're doing and realizing, I've got a friend coming in 5 minutes, but the house doesn't need to be completely tidy. Let's fill our child's love tank first and our play tank first. So when they come, they're more regulated, so we can enjoy the playtime together. So it's being able to stop and back, connect, and know what our kids really need at that time.
That is beautiful. And, you mentioned kind of slowing things down, and nature and the outdoors kind of has a way of slowing us down. Nature doesn't rush, and yet it accomplishes everything. And you
Mm.
said you're a lover of nature and the outdoors. And I'm
Yes.
sure that the play schemas show up in the outdoors as well. So when you're talking about play schemas, what do you think is a game changer for kids and parents with the power of being outside and outdoor play?
I'm not sure who to quote it to, but a quote I love is, kids can't bounce off the walls when there aren't any. And so when kids are outside, no matter what they're like manic, how the day has gone, if there's no walls, they can't bounce off them. And what I love about being outside, either in my own backyard or down at the beach or in the forest or at a park, is time seems to go so much faster. For us, I definitely would say you need to build up your capacity to being outside. So if you're not someone who's used to being outside, you can't be like, right, we're going to go spend 3 hours outside, because all of you will just be like, what am I doing? But it's that slowly building it up, knowing what you need, what you don't need, how your kids react, what you need for different weathers. But when I'm outside, I'm away from the dishes, I'm away from the washing. I'm away from all those tasks I can see. I'm generally away from my phone. So I'm away from those different distractions. And so I can actually just pour into my children and we can have so much fun together. Yesterday morning, my boys were up early, and I make that sound like it was only yesterday morning. My boys are always up early. But it was a kind of uniquely warm morning. And so we were outside at just before 7 in the morning. And we've always got some water guns and different things on the ground outside. And suddenly we're having this water fight and we're having a great time. And suddenly an hour had passed. And I'd done a little bit of gardening with the kids. We'd been doing some playing. And so just being outside opens up all these different doors. It gets you this chance to breathe more. It helps kids regulate more and it helps you regulate more. And especially starting the day with some outside time is just gold. But any time in the day you can fit it in. If you've got kids who need boundaries, you can go to spaces that are more enclosed. So, like friends' backyards or parks and playgrounds that have fences. If your kids don't need that, you can go on bushwalks. And one thing I've really discovered is you don't need to complete a bushwalk. You can choose. There's one that I've actually never got to finish. Before kids, there was this great loop we used to do. With kids, I haven't even think we've made it to the first group of pine trees because there's so much to see and do on the way. We've spent about an hour going that way, so we just spend an hour going back rather than doing the extra 2 hours of the loop. And so just being able to lean into kids again, going slower, knowing what your kids need, and just being able to be outside, having that space to breathe, space to move, and play schemas definitely. You can see you can work them out so well outside. Generally, all you need is a stick or some gum boots, and you can do so much. So, again, I've got another freebie about nature play in my freebie stash. And so you can just have a look at how they can work with the schemas. And with everything, the idea is once you've got that kind of little base idea, it's a springboard because you know your kids, you know your families. And once you understand it more and think about it, you'd be like, here's a park or a playground that we always go to. Oh, we could do this or that. Or, putting bark down the slide may seem destructive, but actually they're learning so much about it. So there's lots of different ways where you can use play and interaction with their natural environment to really enhance the learning without them realizing they're learning, enhance your time outside, and give them that autonomy over just being able to play, being able to be kids, being able to enjoy time with you, with them, with each other.
Beautiful. And I just feel like being outdoors, it's like a calming, sometimes it seems like the indoors, it's like, kids will want to jump on the couch and they're going to want to, right, get into toys and chuck them everywhere. But when we're outside, it just seems to be, it's running around, it's pulling grass, which is fine. Maybe not flowers, but we got to find a different, is that the detachment schema?
Yeah, disconnection.
Pulling
Yeah.
on flowers. Disconnection. So sometimes it still can come up. However, it's just there's so much opportunity for play that's just, yeah, just engaging and natural, and we can kind of let our guards down more. And you did mention, like, yeah, for some parents, they do worry about like their kids running in opposite directions or things like that. But there's ways that fenced areas and ways we can kind of navigate that. I've always have taken my boys out from a very young age, so they kind of got used to being at the park for long amounts of time. And like you said, I think that it builds on connection. There's not the distractions. And it's good for us too, like the sunlight, the de-stressing and all of that. So
Yeah.
yeah, can be more refreshed.
Definitely. And one thing for me, which I've really realized, is we've only got so many summers with our children, especially summers with our children where they are that kind of a little bit more disruptive or really getting into things. And so actually thinking if you've got the luxury of your own garden space, how you plant, how you use it. So for us, we've got a lot of calendula, which is a type of flower. It grows really easily where we are. And so the kids can pull them off and use them in messy play. They can use them to pick off all the petals. They can use them to take them to daycare. If they're edible, so we actually put them into different mixtures and muffins and scones we make. So that's covering disconnection schema. That's covering transformation schema. You can use them to throw, which is trajectory schema. And so there's a lot of positioning schema where you can have different colors so you can line them up. And so if you think about what you've got in your space, you can think about how you can use your space to actually enhance learning and allowing them to have a yes space rather than saying, no, don't do that, no, don't do that, no, don't do that. You do need to teach them there are certain things that they don't do. But our boys now know both right from kind of that 1.5 age, what's edible in the garden, what isn't edible. My oldest is a little bit crazy and he loves Brussels sprout leaves. particularly, or just brassica leaves in general, so leaves of broccoli plants or cauliflower plants, he'll go rip some off. He knows to fold it up and he'll just walk around the garden eating it. So you've got the disconnection schema there, but you've also got this love of the outdoors and learning and different tastes and textures. So if you've got the chance of going outside and planting things, but also as you're saying outside, so another schema is amazing for is the orientation. So orientation I haven't talked about yet, but it's looking at things from different angles. So it's when your kids like to hang upside down. So it could be hanging upside down from monkey bars. It could be lying on the ground and looking at the clouds and seeing them that way. Or it could be getting right down low and seeing if you can find any bugs in the grass. So looking at the world from these different areas of orientation to see how the world works. So everything can be play and also discovery, which is amazing.
Oh, that is so fun and such really great tips. I know right now this kind of a popular trend is like kids potions, like making like water and flowers and herbs and making potions. So if
Yeah.
you have some flowers that can't be pulled out of the garden because they're special and there's not many, there's other ideas like pulling different types of plants or herbs, making a special potion. I love all this creative discovery play and how to redirect it to something positive. And I love the idea that you said about the yes space too, like having a yes
Mm.
space for your child, I think is super important. What tips would you give to a parent that really wants to start observing their child's play more? They want to be more intentional. What's kind of some tips or like the first step for them?
I would say just simply knowing what the 10 play schemas are. Once you've got an idea of what those titles are and then an understanding of what they look like in action, then you can really start making those shifts yourself and noticing them. So, really, the way to stop yourself feeling overwhelmed is by having that knowledge, because knowledge is power, knowledge is the key. So, understanding your 10 most common play schemas and then slowly starting to just look at them in your child's play. Once you've got that, the doors will be open.
Are there any toys or materials that would be helpful in supporting the play schemas that our listeners should be aware of?
I would say look in your kitchen drawer, especially, that
Yeah.
third drawer down that's got all those random things in it. I'm all about using what you've already got. Definitely soft toys, soft balls are really handy to have. Scraps of fabric are really good for the enclosures, for enveloping, for transporting, and then some plastic toys as well as the soft toys. So just really things you've always got, things that are at home already. I don't want you buying a whole lot more things because the great thing about play schemas, as I said, they're not something that's been made up to get you to buy more and to get you to become part of this new fandangled thing. It's actually just how kids naturally look at the world and how they go through life. So it's looking at what you've already got. But yeah, probably the main thing is soft balls because they're not necessarily something you've already got at home. So either little fabric like puff balls that you can have in your bag or things you can make yourself or that you can quite often get at markets are just like filled with like pillow stuffing round balls because they're nice and soft and they're not going to break a window if they get thrown at them. So soft balls, otherwise using what you've got. And as I said, the more you get into understanding play schemas, the more you can see things in your house and be like, oh, look, we've got a bike wheel for rotation. Let's just rotate that around and watch how it spins. Oh, look, we can look at you put something on top, how it goes around and comes back again. So once you understand the schemas, you can see your house and see that you've actually got everything you need to be able to enhance these schemas and help your children work through them.
As you're talking, Ruth, it makes me realize how understanding the play schemas helps communication and language development because it also gives parents an anchor or a reason to talk about something. You're saying,
Mm,
like, I'm spinning the bike wheel around, and I just think of it like a toddler that's learning words, and
yeah.
how just understanding that gives us more to engage with, more to connect with. So that's really fun. Another question I have for you, because I just talked about communication, language, and engagement, is there may be some like different trains of thoughts about talking to children when they're playing. Like, the independent play awareness kind of was like a popular trend,
Mm,
at least a while ago. I saw kind of on social media. And like, sometimes parents will try to super engage, and then there was kind of information about, oh, no, just let them play. Don't interrupt. Or is that really true? And because I know sometimes there's caveats and there's nuances to things. And so if parents want to help support their kids, when we're with our child, should we name the schema? Should we comment or should we just observe? Or is there nuance and it depends?
nuance. But I'd say don't say the schema. The schema is the adult's term. It's what we use as adults to talk to each other. It's how we position it in our brain. It's how we categorize our learning. And so it's not going, oh, you're looking through the rotation schema right now. Wow, you're so good at doing the rotation schema. That's not what we need to do. But I do narrate what's happening. So if they're playing independently, I let them go. I'm not going to come and swoop in when they're doing this great play and start narrating everything they're doing. But if I'm playing with them, I'm putting in that oral language. So if they are in the rotation schema, I'd use words like, wow, that wheel is spinning around. That is rotating. Wow, I can see that rolling down the hill. It's going around and around and around. Look, this is going faster. Oh, this is heavier. It is going slower. And then when they're older, you might use words like experiment or let's make a guess. And so you're using the language of the schema, but you're not saying, oh, look, you're in trajectory right now. That's why you're liking to throw things. The kids will be like, what the flip? And so you're using the language to expand their own vocabulary through what they're doing. So again, you're not trying to teach them. We're not sitting down and being like, we're going to have a science experiment about how forces in motion work. You're just actually going, wow, that's rolling down the hill really fast. Let's try this teddy bear. It's a bit bigger. Oh, let's try this ball. Wow, that rolls really fast. So you're using what you've got and you're just talking. You're narrating what is happening, which as an educator comes naturally to me. We call them think alouds, where you're just talking about what's happening. For parents who aren't used to this, it can feel really awkward at the start. It's like you're just talking to yourself, especially if your child either isn't verbal or hasn't started talking yet. But the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. And the more you can involve your partner or other siblings or friends, the more natural it becomes as well. But sometimes you do find, especially when you're at home with little ones, you realize you've been talking the whole day and nothing's been said back. And that's fine because they're listening, they're learning, you're putting in that language.
Yeah, and kids can be absorbing things just
Mm.
through the exposure, and that's something I think we understand as teachers too, is even if they're not, it doesn't appear like they're absorbing it, they might, and, that's something I've realized with my twin toddlers. They're gonna be 4 soon, but, if I had a conversation with another adult and then later they're telling me about it, so I'm like, "No, they really," even though I don't think he was paying attention, no, they really are picking up they are really picking up the things, and they know, or they observed us do something and we didn't think they were paying attention and they were. So it's quite incredible how kids just absorb things, and all of these skills and tools are really important. So if you could give a message to new parents, either confused by their child's behavior or a parent that feels kind of overwhelmed and burned out, what guidance or what message would you have for them?
I would say you are not alone and you're doing a great job with whatever you are at because everyone comes with their own basket of knowledge. Everyone comes with their own experiences of childhood and everyone brings different things. And so you can look at different parents and think, they've got it all going on. Why is that not me? Why are things just not clicking? But we're all in this boat. We're all in just different parts of this journey. So you're not alone. And as I've said before, we're in this world where as adults, we're conditioned to needing to be productive, to using our time really well, to time tracking, to wake up before our kids and make sure the house is clean and go and go and go and go. We don't need to be like that. And if you're able to reframe your mindset and know that play is valuable, that play is how the children bring sense to this world. Suddenly it shifts from something that we just do to pass time and entertain them and keep them out of our way to something that is shaping their brain and shaping their future self. So just know that this is a journey, that we're all on this together. We're just at different phases and there's people along the way like us here to help you. We love talking, we love chatting. And once you unlock these little steps, you can unlock more and more and more, and it becomes more and more natural. But whatever you're at, wherever you are, just because you're listening to this podcast, we know that you're keen to work well for yourself, work well for your kids, and develop. So go you and have a go at using these play schemas because I think they will open your eyes and open your world.
Amazing, Ruth. Where can our listeners find more about you? I know you mentioned it, but can we hear it one more time?
So where I'm most active is on Instagram, where it's @_play schemas. So again, that's SCHEMAS. If you want to contact me, I've got lots going on there and it's where I'm easiest to contact. So @play_schemas. Otherwise, my website is playschemas.com. And if you put that little /free, you'll get to my freebies page real fast. So you'll be able to see all of that. And I do have my own podcast, which is Demystifying Child's Play. So it's where each week, generally, we're talking around play schemas and a different theme and how we can incorporate them into everyday life. So I would love to see anyone over there. And if you do come over, I'd love to know that you've come from this podcast. I'd love to chat with you. So send me a message and tell me that you've come from here. And if you've got any questions, because I would love to send you a little voice memo back and get to know you a bit more, because we're all in this together. We're all on this journey of life with little ones. And it's so much fun as well as so draining. So let's support each other.
Oh, I love that and the community support. Your podcast, Ruth, where would listeners go to look for that?
Any of your favorite podcast platforms. So it should be anywhere you listen to podcasts. Type in Demystifying Child's Play. Look for me, Ruth Vercoe. I've got a little yellow logo, and you'll be able to listen along.
Amazing. It was so fun chatting with you. I learned things. I know everybody listening is learned things and we want to know more. So we'll definitely be checking out your resources. And it was such a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much, Ruth.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to seeing how this May Play Month goes. Happy playing, everyone.
Thank you for kicking it off, Ruth. We appreciate you.
See ya. Thank you.
Bye.